It shouldn't be here. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The time on the clock is 6 o'clock p.m., the time we should begin our regular scheduled meeting. At this time, we're going to ask Councilman Jackson if he will lead us in our invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's bow our heads. Father God, in the precious name of your Son, Jesus, Lord, as we come before you tonight, Lord, with thanksgiving, Father, as we lift your holy name up, Lord, we invite you in this meeting, and Father, we ask you to bless us, open our hearts, and broaden our understanding, Father God, that we may come together for the betterment of Marlboro County. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we are ready for approval of agenda items.
Miss,
Second.
I ask that we rescind those motions, please. Before approving the agenda, Mr. Chair, I would like to rescind those two motions. Ask that we rescind those two motions. And ask that we make a motion to reconsider the previous discussion on vote on payment of the change order in the relations to the Aquatic Center based on the additional information we received.
We have a motion to reconsider a prior vote on the change order. Do I hear a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that we rescind and reconsider the previous motion. Any discussions? All in favor, let it be known by raising your right hand. Opposed, the same. Motion is carried unanimously. And we will place that item upon the old business A. Now can I hear a motion on approval of amended agenda?
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and properly second that we approve the amended agenda. Any further discussions? All in favor, let it be known by raising your right hand. Opposed, the same. Motion is approved unanimously. At this time, I will entertain a 2026 regular council meeting.
Mr. Chair, before approving the minutes, I would like to ask that the reservations that I stated be included in the minutes. The reservations concerning ordinance number 881.
Okay, state your reservation, Ms.
The
Lawson.
reservation is that my reservations about ordinance number 881 was the increase of fees of $40 per year does not provide any additional service from the company. My constituents are still concerned about the type of service they are receiving, and I'm requesting that you please add this to the minutes.
Okay. Any objections? None. I would entertain a motion on approval of our minutes with the stated reservation from Ms. Lawson.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and properly second that we approve our June 25th, 2026 meeting minutes with the stated objections, based on Ms. Lawson's, information. All in favor, let it be known by raising your right hand. Opposed, the same. Motion is carried unanimously. Moving forward with our agenda, we have representatives from Project Apollo. I'm sorry, we have Representative Luck.
Yeah, I thought I seen him.
We'll invite him to come and address council in the public.
Surprised to see me, I guess. You want me to take the podium here, or where? Thank you. Well, I'll be very brief, because I know you're not here to listen to me talk about what happened this year, but I want to give you a brief update. We're still technically in session. Our regular session ended in the legislature, and then the governor called us back. And that was to handle some redistricting issues, which didn't pass ultimately. That was redistricting the congressional districts, and to complete the budget, which remains unfinished. So let me talk a little bit about the pluses here, some of the things I think were wins this year. One of the, can you hear me all right? Oh, well, I like to walk around. I don't want to be caged at this, but I will. So one of the major pieces of legislation we passed this year that was enacted and made law was this DOT reform bill. And it's long. It was a lot longer and a lot more complicated when it arrived to us. It was pared down and simplified, made a little less severe, but in the end, it does ultimately will help the DOT get projects done faster by cutting through some of the red tape, making the bidding process a little easier, a little more streamlined. There is a provision that might be interesting to this county or some counties, but it does allow the, in certain circumstances, the county council to take the role of the County Transportation Committee. If you're unfamiliar with that, that's the committee that handles divvying up the C funds for roads. A lot of people care about that, but nonetheless, as of right now, Marlboro County has a separate CTC and county council, but if counties want to do that, there's a process that might be of interest, might not be, but that was an interesting provision there. I think the most, I hate to use the word impactful, but the most important change to this statute provides is just streamlining the process, just allowing DOT and its contractors to get the bids, get the contracts, and get things fixed fast. There were a lot of there's other legislation that was really important that we did consider. There was some pretty substantial DUI reform, both sentencing, a lot of procedure issues, a lot of changes to it that made it much more, and made us a lot less soft on DUIs. We have a kind of a reputation in this state of being a little easy on DUIs. The House version passed, the Senate version passed, but, and you're going to hear me say this a couple times tonight, it's now currently in conference committee because the House version and the Senate version do not match. So now 3 House members, 3 Senate members are trying to hammer out a compromise bill that either has some or both, so one change, another change, or neither. It's, as of right now, we don't have anything to vote on. So we'll see where that goes. If we finally end without a decision, then that bill's dead. Next bill, another bill similar to that where there was a lot of controversy about, was this hemp consumables bill. And this was a fascinating bill, and I won't, sit down with me afterwards. I can tell you all the inside baseball if you love politics and parliamentary procedure and all of the intrigue inside. It was a fascinating little fight within the Republican Party, within the Democratic Party. The battle lines were not drawn by party. It really was kind of a free-for-all, and it was fascinating. But what we're talking about, these hemp consumables, these are these like high-rise drinks and the THC drinks. You see them at gas stations and other places, head shops and places like that. The bill flip-flopped from being an outright ban to a regulatory framework to possibly a ban to a regulatory framework. The House version was, I believe, if I remember correctly, we passed a total ban, but then the Senate passed a regulatory framework, or maybe the House passed. Either way, what ended up happening was no one could agree. And eventually, the conference committee did come out with a report, some sort of compromise, that was, strangely enough, not acceptable to anybody. And I thought this was fascinating. The bill effectively legalized THC in the state in certain circumstances. Some people really hated that. And so that side of the aisle really voted hard against it, did not support it. But then it also didn't regulate what it regulated very well or very efficiently, and created kind of a three-tier system like our liquor stores have, you know, that weird three-tier system. So a lot of other folks, sort of pro-business types, hated that. So what ended up happening, nobody was happy. And for the first time in a long time, I watched a lot of Republicans and a lot of Democrats get together and kill a bill. And so it died. To me, that was absolutely wild to see. That just doesn't happen very often. That's going to be a big issue next year, I'm sure. That's just been decided that we're going to have to look at it again next year. I believe what a lot of folks also thought was what we were talking about from the conference committee was just sort of look busy legislation. Pass something to pass something. We don't need, our statute books are big enough as it is. We don't need to pass something just to say we look busy and we've done something. If we're going to do it, let's do it right. So either if it's a complete ban or if it's comprehensive regulation, let's do it right. We'll do it next year. I'm sure it's going to be on the docket. Other than that, those are some of the really large controversial issues of this year until now, which I will not talk much about the budget, because again, this is another issue. The House has a budget. The Senate passed a budget. They, of course, do not match. They are now currently in conference committee, 6 House, 6 Senate. They have been working and working and working to come up with a compromise. Now, we were supposed to have had a budget passed because the state's fiscal year begins July 1st. Well, what day is it? We don't have a budget, so we are actually operating under last year's budget. So we're not like the federal government. If we can't get our act together, the state doesn't shut down. We just operate on last year's budget. So don't worry, as you can see, everything's still running. You may be happy about that. You may not be, but the state's still running. And so the conference committee working on the budget, which also includes Marlboro County, the other Marlboro County representative, Jackie Hayes. He's the only Democrat on the House side. And so I'm glad to have him there because, as you probably all know, there's one budget item in particular that I'm very interested in, and others might be as well. And so I will keep my comments on the budget to I will trust the process, and I'm looking forward to seeing the conference committee at work. All sorts of rumors. I'm not going to discuss rumors. I'm just going to discuss what I know. And I'll tell you what I know. It's in the conference committee, and I think they will come to some sort of compromise, and I will be called back to vote on that along with the rest of the legislature. But that's where we stand right now. It's some of the largest, most significant legislation still kind of is sitting in these conference committees or has been knocked out. And there's a lot of other smaller, don't think that just because these bigger things are sitting here languishing, nothing happened. It's just that when you build a wall, you use lots of bricks. Bricks are small sometimes. We passed some fascinating legislation like a change to heirs property that would hopefully prevent heirs in an heirs property situation from suffering too many reassessments of their property. And it prevents assessable transfers when property's transferred among heirs. That's kind of an important thing. It's bigger in some of the coastal counties where there's a ton of heirs property, but I assure you, we've got plenty in this county too, and in the other 3 counties that I serve. Other little, they seem little, but there are so many other smaller pieces, building blocks. You know, we don't need to build big legislation, draft dozens of pages to make a big impact. There's been some small bills like that are going to make a big difference in people's lives. I guess I would be foolish to not mention we also collapsed our, it's a bad word to use, our tax brackets once again. Now, I was against this because it does caused a good number of my constituents in this district's taxes to go up, but it does overall reduce our income tax rate. Hey, if it works out and it's good, then I'll be the first one to say I was wrong, but I didn't like it. And I think our taxes are plenty low as it is income-wise. Other taxes we'll talk about later, not tonight, but I think our income tax is good as it is, and the state's already running on basically a skeleton crew, sort of a very thin budget as it is. I mean, you may not know this. Department of Administration only works 4 days a week. Those are the people that operate our buildings. That's kind of crazy to me. Anyway, that's where we stand. I am waiting on orders to go back to Columbia, but until then, you can always find me in my office down the street. Seems that everyone does find me in my office down the street. I try to take Wednesdays off, and so if you see me there, I'm still working. But if you have a question, you need to find me, you can find me there, 107 South Parsonage Street, or call me. I can't hide. I refuse to hide, and I'm glad to see everyone here. I know you didn't come here to listen to me talk, so I'm going to sit back and listen to everyone else here tonight.
Mr. Love,
Sir?
the 9 to 10 million balance of the Lake Paul Wallace restoration money, it's in this 26-27 budget, right?
Correct. It is, and it is.
Okay.
And I feel comfortable about that going forward. I'll just leave it at that. With my smile and my comment that I'm comfortable, hopefully should bring some peace to folks.
Okay. Thank you.
Representative Lowe,
Yes, ma'am.
where are we with the Homestead Exemption Act?
So that was the homestead exemption that was passed by the Senate. The Senate right now, I'm not going to try to be confrontational with them or aggressive, but the Senate passed this change to our homestead exemption, which would create a huge hole in our budget, but it would also save people a ton of money. I mean, that's your pay, pros and cons. Big hole in budget, save lots of money, and we're going to have to pay for it. But it was passed in the Senate, but not the House. And now it's apparently, so I hear, part of the budget negotiations. And so I'm just a freshman. I don't know why you would legislate something like that in the budget, but that's one of the things that's being discussed. But the short version is question mark. We don't know. It's possible still, though if it does become part of the conference report, it's probably going to require some rules magic on the House side. It's already passed out of the Senate, but it's going to require some weird maneuvering on the House side. And as I learned during the redistricting debate, the House is not afraid to move mountains if they want something to happen, if it fits the leadership's agenda. But I do not know where it's going to stand, and when you hear an announcement about the budget, you will learn more.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Love.
Thank you.
At this time, we have Mr. Craig Kirksall from Project Apollo, or his designee.
Good evening, council members. Thank you very much for inviting us here this evening. We're delighted to speak with you, and we hope that our short presentation tonight is both informative and enlightening. My name is Rochelle, and I'm the CEO and a founder of a data center company under Project Apollo, and I'm joined tonight by Craig, our Chief Technology Officer, or our CTO. We have a rather fantastic team that has built and executed on more than 120 data center developments and deliveries in the US. Collectively, we have managed under a portfolio more than $7 billion in project development costs, and we've built for those of Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and CoreWeave. So before we get a little bit more into Project Apollo and what that looks like, I'd like to start by addressing the elephant in the room. And the more that we have spoken with community members and stakeholders outside of our industry, the larger and larger that elephant seems to be. And that gap or that elephant really is the understanding of what a data center is, what the industry does, and how it supports the very lives that we lead today. I liken this a little bit to turning the light on in my home. So I turn a light on in my kitchen. I don't really think about where the power's coming from, how it travels down the lines, how it's converted, how it gets to my switch. I just simply turn my light on and go, oh, I can now see. The same, I think, is true of data centers. We live in a digital world where more and more of our services are coming online. We wake up in the morning, we check the weather on our phone, we check our emails, we might watch something on YouTube, we might get in our car and use GPS to drive somewhere, we might do some online banking, we might go online shopping, etc., etc. All of those services come from a data center, a very physical and real building somewhere in the US. And I think the word data center is probably the misleading component here. Another way to think about it is simply a warehouse full of computers, and those computers are switched on and they're working, much like your laptop or your computer at home. And so when we met with the community, a lot of the services that we talked about were directly relatable to the community, whether it's streaming Netflix or Prime or watching something on your TV or gaming or booking something, a travel online, whatever those services mean to the community. I think to the council here, one thing that's critical address is that our essential services are all highly digitalized and have been for a long time. So what that means in practice is our utilities, for example, our grid, is heavily digitalized and relies very much so on data centers. These data centers help the utilities in the grid manage power, disseminate power, monitor their assets, and complete all their customer billing. Just as the same for our 911 services. You call 911, those calls are routed through a data center, they're dispatched, and then that interface, also running through a data center, is used for police and government and fire as well. And I think the biggest one to note is our hospitals. Many hospitals today have a data center on site because this helps them store their critical information for their clients, it helps them process information faster. And as we move into a world where AI is becoming more and more popular and helping us solve our advanced problems, it's helping not only with drugs and vaccine analysis and modeling, it's also helping our doctors and nurses in the hospitals with their note-taking and their filing. It's helping monitor patients, and it's giving direct individual service to many patients in the hospitals. So I think it's very important to understand that data centers, just like our power infrastructure, where power is the backbone of our ability to receive energy and power in our homes, data centers are the same backbone for our digital services. And they've been with us for more than 75 years now. It's not a new advancement in our society. And I think one thing to note is that we can often demonize something that we don't understand and we can't touch and feel. So tonight, I hope that I've shed a little bit of light in the understanding and that we will go on to the touch and feel in a moment. So if one of the gaps or the elephant in the room is the education on what is a data center, I think another gap are the questions that are being asked. If data centres have been around in our communities for the last 75 years, in the 90s they went through huge growth as the internet came online, then rather than saying, how do we stop the data centres, maybe we should be saying, how do we build this industry and data centres responsibly? And that's where our company comes in, and I think I've lost it. This is, sorry, I didn't flick up on it. This is just a little infographic of what is a data centre from a very sort of personable space. We would be happy, we work with a really fantastic non-profit that is not only developing curriculum but helping educate on what data centres are. So if you would like us to share any information with you to help, you know, disseminate information and educate the community, we'd be more than happy to do so. So this moves us on to what are people worried about, and this really brings us to our how do we become a responsible data centre developer. And so the most common questions we're hearing in the community are, will my power bills increase? Will my water use increase? Will we use all the town's water? Is it going to be noisy? What are the emissions? What are they going to look like? And I think a big one is jobs. Are there going to be any jobs for the community? So I'm going to call on my colleague and ask him a few questions so that we can shed a little bit of light on where the industry was, where some of these questions may have arisen from, and how we actually deliver in our developments. So Craig, I think we'll start with the first one. Are you able to explain why the community might have questions around power bills and what our development looks like?
Sure. Thanks, Rochelle. Pleasure to meet all of you this evening, council members and members of the community as well. So power bills, there's this perception that, you know, if a data center comes into my community, our power bills are going to skyrocket because the local utility company is going to have to put in a lot of new infrastructure to support that data center. And, you know, typically the PUC spreads the cost of infrastructure development on utility companies to all of their users. Well, in our case, the way that we are building our data centers, we are doing what's called BYOP, or Bring Your Own Power. Project Apollo and all of the developments that we're currently working on will do exactly that. We intend to have our own on-site power generation system. And how we're going to do that is through the use of what's called fuel cells. So fuel cells, unlike engine generators or turbines, they do not combust natural gas and send emissions into the air. They do use natural gas as a fuel source, but through an electrochemical process with air, you can produce hydrogen and thus electricity. And that's done in a very clean way so that there are no emissions and no noise. So by us generating our own power on site, there is absolutely no impact to the local utilities' costs that could be spread out among their users.
Great, thank you, Craig. And I think just on that, traditionally data center companies have used local utilities. That's because our data centers have been smaller than where they're going to in the future. A lot of companies are now moving to what Craig mentioned, bring your own power. It's a form of being responsible developers and not putting any impact on infrastructure that was originally designed for our communities. So Craig, on that then, in the past, have data centers used a lot of water? Where would this concern come from, and are we going to use water in our developments?
Yeah, traditionally, and I've been in the data center industry for 40 years, and when I was first developing data centers, they did use a lot of water. There were a couple reasons for that. The data centers were much smaller, the power usage was a lot less, and air was the main means of cooling. You know, you just blow cold air into the data center, and the best way to make cold air is through chilled water, and the most common means of producing that chilled water is through chillers that ran through open cooling towers. The warmer air went through the cooling tower, it evaporated into the air. That's where all the water waste went. So you had to make up all that water by injecting water in from the local water system. Our data centers are going to use what's called a closed loop system. So in a closed loop system, it's similar to an open loop system, but instead of using these open cooling towers to evaporate water, we use dry coolers. So the water is charged into the system at the very beginning when you first open up the data center, and that water is used and circulated over and over and over and over through the life of the data center. So no water ever evaporates or needs to be made up. The only water usage in our data center is going to be for restrooms, break rooms, and basic cleaning purposes.
Thank you, Craig. And what about sound? Because I know that there's a lot of people out there concerned that the data centers are going to be quite noisy.
Most of the sound from a data center comes from a few things. Those dry coolers that I mentioned, so they're similar to the air conditioning unit that you might have sitting outside your home where there's a fan running constantly. So you do have noise generated by fans. You also have a little bit of noise generated by the fuel cells, but not very much. So typically, with the data centers that we're designing, the decibel level is about 65 to 70 decibels, and that would be measured at the property line. So there are a lot of mitigation techniques that we can employ to cut that sound down even more. When you look at a site, you place your building where it should go, and then you look at where are all of my sound producing elements. The best way to design a data center site would be to put those elements, the furthest away from any property line, perhaps behind the building. And, even if that doesn't work, you can put sound mitigation walls up, you can do ground mounts. But we will be doing noise modeling. So we have a consultant on board that once we design the site and put all of the elements there, we can model using AI to figure out how much sound is at the property line and how does that sound dissipate beyond.
Great, thank you. And I think you touched on this, but what sort of emissions are we going to see from our data centers?
So regarding emissions, since we aren't combusting fuel on site, there's no particulate matter, there's no NOx, there's no SOx. These are sort of the nasty things that get emitted into the air that you have to take care of. The fuel cells have virtually no emissions. So the company that we are aligned with to put the fuel cells on the site is a company called Bloom Energy. So look them up on the web. They have a great website, a lot of information. You can read all about their technology and why they are low emitting devices and a lot of data regarding sound, emissions, natural gas usage. But there's virtually no equipment on the site that will emit anything into the atmosphere.
No question.
Thank you very much, Craig. And I may just skip to this slide because this is a render of what we would like to develop here in Marlboro County. And Craig has discussed how we build our data centers, but we haven't mentioned why. And our why is when we first lifted, there are many on our team who are from Pennsylvania, and they witnessed firsthand the rise of the steel industry and the fall of the steel industry and what sort of scars that left on the towns and the communities there. And that was really down to one factor. When an industry exploded, nobody took control of the steering wheel. There was no leader, no one set a benchmark. And so it was just a state or a region of the US that was rife with this sort of development. We are setting a benchmark. We are positioning ourselves as industry leaders to demonstrate that you can build data centres responsibly, you can give back to the community, and you can build beautiful infrastructure that gives back to place and home. So we're a little bit short on time, so I'm just going to move into the jobs. And Craig, I'm going to go back to this slide. So Project Apollo will be looking to invest between $500 and $700 million for this specific project. We're looking at anywhere between 1,000 and 2,000 short-term jobs in the construction industry and 65 long-term jobs offered in Marlboro County. Our business model also includes 2% of the project cost, so whether that's 500 million, 600 million, that will be put back into the community. It is our hope that we put that back into workforce education and training by building a partnership with Northeastern Technical College, where we can start working with the high school students and the college students to upskill, uplift, build capacity, and then have those students coming and working in our data centres. Because how wonderful would it be to have your student or your child go to high school in the county, go on to the local technical college, and then be offered a fantastic job in the industry here. And I think it's important to mention that in Northern Virginia, Ashburn specifically, it's known as the epicenter of data centers globally. And in line with that, that particular county has the highest median wage in the US for almost 2 decades. And a lot of that is driven by the data center industries, by the technical jobs there and what's offered in those technology parks. So we can, working together, build that capacity here in Marlboro County. And Craig, I'm going to hand it over to you to talk about these jobs.
So jobs created by the data center industry are some of the highest paying jobs of any industry in the country. We've categorized the jobs into 4 separate tiers. Only 2 came up, unfortunately. Well, it's okay, I'll talk about the other 2. So what you see here are tiers 3 and 4, which are on the upper side of the scale. Tier 1, which would be more entry-level jobs, these would be jobs for someone maybe coming out of college, or out of high school, or had some technical training through a vocational technical program, and they have a little bit of experience in the trades. They may be an apprentice, something of that nature. And I'm sorry I don't have the salary ranges here, but I believe they were starting salaries around $40,000 a year up to about $65,000 per year. So these are the entry-level positions at the data center. Then moving up a scale, the tier 2 jobs, these are folks that probably have gone to, say, Northeast Technical College and gotten some sort of associate's degree or some sort of trade certification. These are the folks that are really going to be operating the data center on a day-to-day basis. So these are people that are proficient in the electrical technologies, the HVAC technologies. They might have experience in fiber optic work, pulling fiber optic, terminating fiber optic cables. It's a very specialized field. Jobs of that nature. So those jobs are about $80,000 to $100,000, and that's about a 3 to 7 years of experience requirement. So tier 3, what you see here on the screen, these are the professional engineers and the technical leaders. So these are the people that are kind of leading those technicians that I just spoke about. So these are typically people with an engineering degree from a 4-year college, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, network engineers, typically have 5 to 15 years of experience, and salary ranges for these roles are $120,000 to $220,000 per year. And then moving up to the tier 4, now these are the executive level people at the site. So these are really like your site director, maybe your chief of engineering, your director of operations. So there's probably 3 or 4 of these people at the site. These people have, these are industry veterans. So they've been in the data center industry for a while, and can lead a large team. This typically requires 10 to 20 years of experience, and you can see the salary ranges here are $200,000 to $300,000 per year. One thing I'd like to add that's not shown on here, the data center industry really gravitates to people that have military experience. So veterans, anybody that's been in the military, and there's a good reason for that. You know, when you are in the military, you're in a mission critical environment. So, you know, you have to know how to work like a team. You understand what mission critical is. There is basically no saying no. The data center industry functions just like that. The data center is a mission critical environment. You know, the systems can never go down, and you know, people that have very disciplined training are the people that really thrive in these environments.
Thanks, Craig. And as we mentioned, one of our key goals, if we were to be granted the opportunity to work in this community, would be to partner with your technical college. As I mentioned, we have a strong relationship with an NGO that's building out the curriculums that's already being delivered in a number of colleges throughout the US. We'd like to bring that here. We'd also like to build a classroom on the data center site with a micro data center so that the students can come and touch and feel and understand what a data center is and what they're like, which would also be open to the community for anyone who's interested and who wants a closer look. So thank you very much for your time this evening, and we'll hand it back to the council. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, moving forward with our agenda, we're down to recognition of citizen requests before council. We ask that our citizens keep their comments to the allotted 3 minutes, and we will engage therefore. First, we have Ms. Catherine Fawkes.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Fouts, and I, along with my family, are residents of the city of Clio. I'm here tonight to demand that this council immediately enact a strict moratorium on all new data center approvals, zoning allocations, and pilot incentives in Marlboro County. We are being fed a dangerous economic illusion. These data centers threaten our community with dangers we are only just beginning to understand. Tech companies will try to soothe us by slapping a green label on these data centers, promising eco-friendly operations and sustainable energy. But communities across the country are waking up to a harsh reality. Corporate promises do not equal ecological results. On July 8th, at exactly 10:28 a.m., regarding the question of whether or not this project would raise our utility bills, one of these CEOs stated directly into a microphone that it was a loaded question. They could not and would not confirm that our power bills wouldn't skyrocket. When a corporate executive openly admits that protecting our wallets is a loaded question, the warning sirens should be deafening. I want to speak directly to the officials on this dais. History is notoriously unkind to leaders who choose corporate money and short-term revenues over the actual people they were elected to protect. Complacency in the face of giant tech conglomerates is not neutrality. It is a coward's choice. We live in a time where every single thing is put on record. If you approve these projects, your legacy will not be an honorable one. Let us be remembered not for acting first, but for acting wisely. Genuine revitalization starts from within the community, not from an industrial server farm. We already possess the computing infrastructure for today's AI. By approving these campuses, you are building the physical engine for a machine that humanity does not know how to steer. These data centers are being built to manufacture a godlike artificial superintelligence. And if you think this is science fiction, I urge you to search for the Statement on AI Risk, published by the Center for AI Safety. It is a historic warning signed by the creators of modern AI, among over 1,000 other experts. They explicitly state that mitigating the risk of human extinction from AI must be a global priority alongside preventing pandemics and nuclear war. The very people investing in this technology are openly admitting they might lose control of it, yet this council is rushing to build its foundation. Do not let our county become a casualty in a dangerous corporate race. Please pass the moratorium. And to Rochelle, I have brought a gift for you from my own personal library, which reflects a plea to have the courage to pivot away from the pursuit of processing power and toward truly protecting the living world you and I both love so profoundly. I will leave it with, well, I'll hand it to you personally, actually, in the sincere hope that you choose to use your incredible gifts to defend the human heart before we build a machine that outgrows us all. Thank you.
Next, we have Caleb Mitchell Waddell. Caleb McDowell.
All right, first I would like to second what she had said. I think that would be a advisable decision for the council. But speaking from just kind of a community perspective, I'm a manufacturing engineer that lives in Marlboro County. And I can't help but notice the growing distaste for data centers and AI in general across the nation, really. I mean, we've all seen the news about data centers ruining communities, and we've all seen the varying different stories about the dangers of that. And I can't help but think, did they get the same speech? Did it sound this good to them when they signed up for that? And I can't help but think that to allow this would be a mistake on our community. 65 jobs, I can't say that's very enticing for the community. A lot of money, I can say that's enticing for the budget. But we have to keep in perspective what's good for the community isn't always good for the budget. But something else I just wanted to mention is I am a published author on a science fiction story about the dangers of AI. So I have done a lot of thought on this topic over the years, and I've contemplated what day will I wake up and go into a facility that is a lights-out facility and turn the lights off. I suppose I will yield the rest of my time for that and allow the next speaker to go ahead and speak, but thank you for your time. I guess I'll yield.
Thank you, Ms. McDowell. Next, we have Mr. Daniel Griggs.
I'd like to thank everybody for letting me be here today. I'm really unprepared for this. I have not been able to attend the other two meetings, but I do have some personal opinion that I'd like to share. I have a business that's within a half-mile of this proposed site. There are many residents, church, farms that are within a half-mile of this proposed site that will be affected by any noise, any upset conditions we will be directly affected. So therefore, I'm here to speak against it. 65 jobs sounds great in number. What I just saw on that screen up there, maybe a fourth of them will be filled within the county. Rest of them won't be. Will those people live in this county? Will they move to this county? Will they move to your neighborhood across the street from the data center? Probably not. Will that money come back? You know, I'm not real familiar with what she said about the fuel cells, but it sounds a lot like a hydrogen generator to me. I've had a little bit of experience with that. There's members of council that's had a lot more than me. Hydrogen generators and hydrogen burners are not a good thing. We need to think about that. We need to think about what we're putting in place, how it's going to affect each and every one of us, how it's going to affect us long term. Are those 65 jobs 10 years from now going to return money back to our county? Or are we looking at a get-rich-quick scheme? Are we looking at a pile of money right now and then that's it, and we don't know what we're going to end up with in 10 years? I urge the 8 of you to think long and hard, do your research, think about your citizens, think about who it's affecting and what we're doing, and make the best decision possible.
Thank you, Mr. Griggs. Ms. Antoinette Balfour.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I want to commend Ms. Rochelle because her job is to convince you, get all the positive information she can to convince you that this is the right thing. She's done a good job at that. And I want to commend her for that. But I don't believe that this is the right thing for us. They kept saying that our company this, our company that. This is a brand new company. They've never built a data center before. I went to both meetings, so I got a lot of information. The company has no centers. We asked what size it was going to be. They didn't know. And industrial site is the wrong place, but I understand they've been looking at property with 80 to 100 acres. So yeah, they may throw $10 or $12 million at you at the beginning. That's not a whole lot of money. But what they fail to tell you is every time they expand, you got to have more water. And nothing's 100%. There are going to be water leaks. There are going to be chemical leaks. And how can you say it's not going to happen? There's a thing called an accident, and accidents happen all the time. And when we asked them about jobs, they said it might be 20 jobs a shift. That's 60. That's not even 65. And not only that, when you look at those jobs, the only jobs that our people will qualify for are Tier 1. Because Tier 2 jobs, they said it take two years to build a plant. It takes 2 years to get an associate's degree. You have to have 2 to 5 years experience to get a Tier 2 job. So, I mean, it's really almost 0 jobs for us. And I think we need to be looking at something that's going to bring a whole lot more jobs and something that our families can utilize. Okay, why Marlboro County? Marlboro County is right at the PD River, right? Well, if you don't need water, why you come to a place that's got water? Why go to a place that don't have that water since you're only going to use some one time? You come into Marlboro County, they looked at 3 counties, Marlboro, Meriden, Dillon, the poorest counties in South Carolina. Because they figure you're a poverty-stricken county, so if they throw a few $1 million at you, you're supposed to jump for joy. You know, and they only gonna do it one time, and every time they expand, they're making more and more money. But we're not getting anything from that. We have a low education. We all know what the educational rate is here in Marlboro County. You know, we got 3% postgraduates, 25 years and over, 6% with bachelor's degrees, 22% with associate's degrees. And the majority of our county is over 30. So we have a high older rate here. And that closed water system, research shows that it's not 100% sustainable. It's 70% sustainable. So if the water never evaporates, why is it 70% and not 100%? And the gas power, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Mr. Robert Goff.
All right, Mr. Chairman, Council, appreciate the opportunity to speak to y'all tonight. Start out by saying that it says a lot to me that the people who came up here and tried to sell this to us left as soon as they got done talking and didn't even have the courtesy to stay around and listen to the citizens and hear exactly what they had to say. So y'all might want to consider that when you're doing your deliberations. So I'm going to read some prepared stuff here. So just want to start out by saying I don't oppose sensible economic development, but I also don't think that we have to jump at every shiny nickel that's thrown at us just because we are a poor and rural county. Any project this size deserves a thorough, transparent, and independent review before a final decision is made. My concerns center on the long-term impact this project could have on our community. I live in this community. I live right across the street from where you're proposing it. I don't think anybody here on council would be in that close proximity to it. So it's where I raise my kids, my grandkids. So I do have some concerns about that. Although the facility is described as using a closed-loop cooling system, I would like clear information about its annual water use, where the water will come from, and whether it could affect our supply during droughts or future growth. I would also request an independent noise study addressing the impacts of cooling equipment, pumps, backup generators, as well as an evaluation of potential effects on nearby property values, our electrical infrastructure, and whether taxpayers could ultimately be responsible for upgrades or other public costs. I also ask for full disclosure of the chemicals that are used. If you don't know what PFAS are, those are forever chemicals. Once they're in the environment, they're in the ground, they don't go anywhere. And they have to use these to maintain the lines, they're used to clean, and if they get into our system, then we're gonna have to deal with it. So the PFAS safeguards, will those be in place for leaks or contamination? Also like to know how stormwater, groundwater, wastewater will be protected, managed, and whether this project will place additional demands on our local treatment systems. Can we even facilitate what needs to be done with the wastewater? Another concern, long-term economic benefit to our community. I think that one's been beat to death, so I'm not gonna spend a whole bunch of time on that one. Very few jobs, very few long-term impacts that are gonna be good for our community. Before approving this project, I think the public deserves clear information about the number of permanent jobs, expected wages, local hiring commitments, workforce training, any tax incentives or abatements that are being offered. Finally, I'd ask council to evaluate the impact on traffic, emergency services, public infrastructure, and clarify whether this is the full project or the first phase of a larger expansion. Anybody who travels on 38 North knows what we already deal with just with beach traffic. Now you're going to introduce 18-wheelers, construction traffic, and all of those things into an already narrowed pathway. Bad news. This is an important decision. It's going to affect our community for decades. I respectfully ask the council to ensure that any decision is based on complete and information. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Eva Shafay.
Good evening. To the council members, Dr. Johnson, citizens, and visitors. The first thing I'm going to say is everybody needs to take a deep breath and stop being afraid of progress and change. Children will accept this because they love technology. But why are the adults acting like it's going to kill them? Probably more people die in automobile accidents than they die from data centers. And I don't hear anybody saying we should stop riding in cars. So just relax and take a deep breath. Blessings and love to everyone. I'm Eva Harley Shafay, a retired teacher and an author. I love creativity, I love technology, so I'm so excited about the prospect of having a data center here in Marlboro County. I just talked to the representatives and we talked about what she's gonna do for the school system. She's gonna have a classroom. The students are gonna be able to go out to the data center and do field studies. We are living in a technological age. We're not living in 1870 with the buggies and the cotton. We're not living there anymore. We are not living there. So everybody need to just cool down, cool off. And so I support the data centers because I trust our leaders and our administration, just as I trusted Mr. Munderland when he was here. I don't ever remember anybody, any community group, fussing about anything he suggested to bring to Marlboro County. I don't know what's that about. But I am generally curious about what is going on in Marlboro County. There's a negative about everything. There's a negative in your body. There's a negative everywhere you look. There's a negative and a positive. I believe that you accentuate the policy
and that will help to delete the negative. So, I did all this research before I came. Marlboro County is in bad shape, and we all know that. I think Mr. Goff mentioned the unemployment. And this has been happening for 50 or 100 years. It didn't just happen the last 3 years. It's been decades of infiltration, decades. And so what are we going to do? Are we going to pass by on opportunities that might help us lift us out of poverty? You know how many citizens die because they can't have access to the adequate medicine they need? And then you didn't pass that you fussed about telehealth?
Thank you, Ms. Shafay.
Okay. So you know how much I love this. So Marlboro County will rise.
Dean Moore.
Hello, everyone. 1 or 2 data centers of the size we're talking about, I really don't think you heard anything. Did you hear the people say $400 or $500 million? Go a half mile from Marlboro County line and look at that $10 billion facility. $10 billion here. One of the last gentlemen said something, we need to make sure that any kind of waste is neutralized. I agree with that. United Technologies, Essex Wire, Delta Mills, Burrow, Elk River. Think about the industries we've lost the last several years. We can't stand this. It's just breaking us down. We've got to have some investments. Richmond County accepted it. Richmond County Council accepted it. $10 billion. Okay? $10 billion. And for those who think, oh, Dean Moore don't care about the environment, you're wrong. I busted my butt for 2 years keeping the largest landfill in the United States out of this community. Okay? If we would be just devastated if our group, Citizens of Marlboro County, haven't kept that out of here. There'll be nothing left. You talk about water contamination. I care about this community. I also care about jobs and not dying as a community. Yes. Yes. We've got to, like the lady said a minute ago, we've got to grow. AI is here. A data center is computer on top of computer on top of computer on top of computer. That's what it is. It doesn't produce waste. It receives information fast and for orders and some AI, I guess. But my gosh, this is ridiculous. I can understand concerns. We have to make sure it's safe. Like the gentleman said a minute ago, we've got to make sure it's safe. I agree. But a data center, maybe 2 small data centers, will add a lot of tax base for our area, produce some jobs, and I really believe that from a psychological standpoint, other industries will look at us and say, hey, let's, data centers coming to Marlboro County. Let's take another look at Marlboro County. That's what I feel about it. We've got to grow. Well, what do we have now? Like I said at a community center about a month ago, we're not a college town, we're not a college city. We're not going to get the automobile manufacturers because we don't have we don't have enough educated people, and we're not going to have some company come in to build computers for 1,000 jobs. We're just not going to have it. Let's have an open mind about it. I do want to protect the community, but we need jobs. We need jobs, we need investment. 1 or 2 data centers will not hurt us. That's my opinion.
Mr. Rocky Brown.
Council, my name is Rocky, and I'm sorry, I want to apologize. When someone comes up to this podium, whether you be a citizen or a guest out of town, you should be able to tell your first and your last name to identify who you are. I think coming up here, just giving your first name is very disrespectful to you, the board, to us as the citizens. I want to get that straight. Now, there's 3 things I want to talk to you about. Y'all have already heard everybody about the data center. I want to talk to you about accountability, transparency, and ethics. Accountability. Y'all are accountable for what goes on in this county. Remember, y'all work for me. Y'all work for these people. And if you can't do your job, then, resign, leave. Take this in consideration very, 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 very delicately, what you're doing, what you're voting on for this community. All these code names that you're calling Apollo and all this other stuff, call it for what it is. If it's a data center project, call it a data center project. If it is a pool project, call it a pool project. People, neither one of you are Ethan Hunt, and you're not the Impossible Force team. Keep things transparent. Now, one of you has told me that you would take a multi-million-dollar revenue over anything, period. Now, that gets me, and I'm not accusing anybody, but I'm just making an opinion. I'm starting to question ethics. Why do y'all want to take this money? This money's not going to be per year. It's going to be a one-time deal. The jobs, 65 jobs, that's a small number. No, you're probably going to see about 10 jobs. And to start with, if they're going to offer $40,000 for somebody as a high school student, boy, I tell you what, let me go back to high school. That's not going to be true. Those jobs are going to be somewhere around 20, 25, maybe 30. I've been in the engineering industry for 40 years. I know computers. But let me tell you one thing, and I want to be an advocate for the citizens of this county. Consider me the eagle on the cliff. I am the hawk on the wire. I'm the owl at midnight. I'm watching. I'm looking, and I'm digging.
Excuse me, I got here at 5:50 and I didn't see the sign-up sheet. Can I still speak? I had to work today. I'm busy. I won't take 1 minute.
Unfortunately, we have rules and procedures. Thank you to each one of our citizens for not only attending, but voicing your concerns. While we cannot specifically comment, we do take your information under advisement. And so we appreciate the amount of citizens who have expressed their opinions in regards to the projects that are on the table for Marlboro County. At this time, I will entertain a motion for executive session to discuss contractual matters.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that we convene to executive session. Any discussions? All in favor, let it be known by raising your right hand. Opposed, the same. Motion is approved. At this time, I entertain a motion to exit executive session and reconvene in regular session.
So move.
So moved and properly second. Any discussion? All in favor, let it be known by raising your right hand. Opposed, the same. Motion is carried unanimously. No actions were taken in executive session. Old business. I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we approve, based on the information that we got and from legal advice, that we approve the original change order for the aquatic center.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that we approve the original change order based on updated information in consultation with our attorney. Any further discussions? All in favor, let it be known by raising your right hand. Opposed, the same. Motion is carried unanimously. We have no new business on the table. Do we have any appointments to boards or commissions? None. Mr. Parks, finance report.
Good evening. You have before you the finance report for the 12 months ending June 30th of 2026. Revenues totaled $15,080,895 in comparison to the 12 months ending June 30th of 2025 in the amount of $13,891,758. General fund expenditures through June 30th of 2026 total $16,055,310 of a $16,492,894 budget, or 97.35% of budget year to date. Expenditures for the 12 months ended June 30th of 25 totaled $15,558,75 of a $14,748,543 budget, or 105.22% of budget year to date at that point. Accruals of revenue and expenditures will continue to be made over the following 3 months. There will be a lot of work that finance staff will perform to close the books. The county's financial auditors will prepare the finalized reporting in the form of an annual audit report and compliance report. That report is due December 31 of 2026, and the operational results of the county will be reported by the auditors at the January 2027 regularly scheduled meeting. I don't have any other information. I don't know if there's any questions on the report. I'd be glad to answer those at this time.
I do, Mr. Park.
Certainly.
This report that we have is our in June report. Is that not right? The final report for the 2026 budget?
It will be in terms of our reporting, yes.
Okay. I have a few questions, and
Sure.
I promise you I'll be brief and not targeting you, but I went through my book. I
Okay.
don't get a chance to be as detailed in our subcommittee meeting, but after reading it, I heard you say that the auditor's process is going to be beginning in a few weeks, right?
Yes, they'll actually be doing preliminary testing. They'll be coming August 3rd and 4th. They'll spend the first 2 days of that week, and then they'll return in October when we actually have the closing entries completed.
Okay. If you will look on the revenue report,
Yes.
on the revenue report, let me be clear that I'm understanding this. A parenthesis in the revenue report means plus, right?
Yes, we've
added funds.
exceeded the budget, yes.
Okay, so when there's no plus, let's look at line item 3,700. There's no plus, what is that
Right.
telling us?
Line item 3,700, which is miscellaneous revenue, it's about $61,000 short of the budget amount at this point in time. And of course, that's prior to us doing any year-end closing amounts, because revenues will definitely increase, over the next couple of months. Part of the accrual process And then also, like, for example, with property tax revenues are deemed to be currently collectible if they are collected in the first 60 days after the end of the fiscal year. So there are a number of things that will be, that will impact revenues in terms of year-end closing.
So with that figure, so I can understand it, what does that actually mean? We didn't get anything added to that, so was money's taken from that?
No, what we're saying at this point in time during, at this point in time during the year, prior to doing the closing, our revenues are short of our original budget projection.
Is that what you're saying?
That's what we're saying.
Okay,
Yeah.
on the expenditure report?
Yes.
On the expenditure report, which you said that this is probably the final report for June.
For June, yes.
Okay. In May report, I want to point out, and that's why it concerns me. Since May report, I noticed that 15 accounts have ended in a negative balance.
Correct.
Exactly 15.
Yes.
And we already had 6, but 15 accounts, and with a big total of $280,000.
Right.
I already had accounts that was $219,000.
And we still, at this point in time, at the end of the year, the unspent revenues as a total, $437,000. If you see that at the bottom of the second page,
Yes.
what was referred to as the unencumbered balance, yes.
Right, I see that, but
Yeah.
still and yet, we still have close to $500,000 that we could have been negative budget because of
We-
overspending.
We do have some departments that have exceeded budgetary expenditures, and then obviously we've got departments that have, have came out positive. So that does tend to happen. I mean, some of the things, like for example, even like for example in public works, a lot of times you'll have scenarios where you've got very large equipment and you'll have to be doing some unexpected repairs. Sometimes, like with a motor grader, sometimes those expenditures can be $50,000 or $60,000 to repair it. Didn't necessarily plan to do that this year, but there are things like that obviously causes
Is
some
that what happened
departments
in
to go
public
over.
works, to be a
That's one of the things that did happen.
$100,000 positive, and then you go to a $80,000 negative?
Yes, it can, yeah.
Then there was some department heads, and like you noticed, that they really went way over their budget, and I'm hoping that they will really stay in guideline of the budget. But like I said, I saw those accounts, and it seems like it always shows up on the May report. It showed up last year on the May
Right.
report,
Right.
on the June report, the last month of budget.
And what we don't want to, people know that it's the last, month in the budget year,
Yeah.
so let's just spend and
No,
so, and so
no.
we want to kind of
Part
look
of
out
what-
for those particular markers.
Part of what we do is we actually implement a spending freeze in terms of we're not going to issue any more, requisitions or approve any more POs when we get in the last couple weeks of the year, because I know there is a tendency for that to happen.
I would say let us work with our department heads to
Yes.
ensure as much as possible that we stay. Even though I see this unencumbered, balance, we do have a healthy balance, but it still don't negate department heads from doing their due diligence and ensuring that whatever is budgeted, we stay as close to that figure as we can.
Correct, yes. Okay. I've got a couple other reports. One is the cash balances, and then the last report is the capital project. So I don't know if there's any questions on any of those. I'd be glad to answer that.
Cash balance on page 29.
Okay, 29, all right, very good.
Our real estate checking account,
Right. And,
last month it was 3.2 mil.
yeah, one of the things that happens with, let's see, real estate checking, you're say 29. Yeah, that is the fiduciary account. What happens is this, it's Fund 65. the collections take place in that account. And one of the discussions I had with the treasurer, because they hadn't actually distributed those funds in May, and one of the things that we had discussion, that we needed to make sure that those funds were distributed before the end of the year, because obviously we want to make sure that we record the revenues, and that's one of the things you saw too, is some of the property tax revenues increase obviously in this month. And the same with the other taxing authorities, you know, like the city of Bennettsville, the school district. We want to make sure that we distribute those funds as quickly as possible. But current real estate, yeah, that amount was very significant in the May report.
But you saying that this money is accounted for?
That's right, exactly. Yeah, and what happens, the treasurer collects that, and then at the end of the month, their task is then to distribute those funds according to whatever millage was charged by each one of those taxing authorities. And then, of course, those checks are written to the various entities, whether it's the cities, it might even be to, the EMS fund or, the debt service fund. There could be several different funds that those dollars are actually written to.
So even with the school bond checking.
Right.
And the local government investment, because that was a significant amount of money coming from those accounts too.
Fund 241 is school bond and also is the Wallace sales tax. So actually 241 is the school bond, the 243 is the Wallace sales tax. So you can see they've got two different accounts there. And they can utilize those funds to pay debt service. They can also use those funds to make capital improvements. So they've got a project, a capital project checking. They can make a transfer to that if they want to.
Do you think that's what happened in that particular fund? I know you can't speculate, but do you think that's what may happen with that big amount being like $2.9 million from that account?
One of the things that we try to do is, and I'm sure the school district tries to do as well, is they try to have a full year's worth of debt service collected within those accounts prior to, utilizing that. So, and they've been in a good position with that.
Thank you.
Okay, very good.
Any further discussions? Thank you, Mr. Park.
Thank you.
Ms. Sumter.
Good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank the County Council for entrusting me to serve as interim county administrator. I'm looking forward to making continued improvements with county operations, activities, and services. I look forward to working with the County Council, the employees, and the citizens of Marlboro County. I'm going to discuss some upcoming events. At the library, they will have their reading finale on Tuesday from 10 to 11. They're going to host Mark Daniels for a foam and fun party on the lawn. Participants are encouraged to wear their bathing suits and bring towels. The library will be closed July 20th through the 22nd for staff training and implementation of the library's new integrated library system. As of July 1st, the library is now a member of the South Carolina LENS, which is the South Carolina Library Evergreen Network Delivery System. It's a 28-member consortium across the state of South Carolina. Library patrons will now have access to borrow more than 3 million items, and this will merge in addition to the libraries in the neighboring counties. The museum will host Freedom 250 Mobile Museum Freedom Truck Tour. It will make a stop here in Marlboro County. It will be hosted on August 27th, 28th, and 29th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The mobile unit will be at the back of our office, the administration building, or what I call the old hospital down the hill, okay? Recreation is gearing up for fall sports. Fall sports recreation is now open for football, soccer, cheerleading, and volleyball. Registration is actively being promoted through the county, and families are encouraged to register early to help prepare teams, coaches, and schedules. Registration deadline is August the 14th. Also, our recreation department will host their first annual volleyball camp for girls ages 8 through 14. The camp will be on July 18th and the 19th at Wallace Elementary Middle School. It's a free camp, and it gives the opportunity to expand youth programming and grow volleyball in our county. Registration will still be held on site the day of the camp. We also have a basketball camp for boys and girls ages 6 through 12, and it'll be held on July 21st through the 23rd at the Wade Prince Recreation Center. This is also a free camp. Tonight, our athletic banquet for t-ball, softball, and baseball is being held as we are still right here. The event started at 6 p.m., and on Thursday evening, it will be held again. They divided it among the various age groups, so there are 2 different sessions, and they're both being held at the Prince Recreation Center. I'm going to talk about our facilities a little bit. As some of you may have already seen, we have new restrooms and concessions facility at Lindsay Park. This has been a long time coming, if you've been out there over the years. The former restrooms also have been demolished. We still plan to make more improvements to the park. Then we have our pickleball court that's located at the Marlboro County Golf and Recreational Complex. It's almost completed, so if you want to stop by or just drive by, loop around, because if you get to the end, you've got to turn around because you can't go past the lake. But please stop by and look at the improvements that we're making on our different facilities and the different activities that we're hoping to provide to our citizens of Marlboro County. Also, Council, you were given a letter from Ms. Lakeisha Jenkins Cribb. It went to all the community leaders, and they're asking you to attend their community sunrise welcome, which is on the first day of school. The first day of school is July 29th. If you plan to participate, you need to contact Ms. Cribb by July 17th. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Sumter. Councilman Blackman. Councilman Jackson.
I'd just like to thank all of the wonderful citizens for coming out tonight, our constituents, and I just grateful that we're here to support the county, and let's just keep pushing and going forward. And we understand that we are moving in different directions. Things are changing, but at the same time, we can't, I know we're Marlboro County Bulldogs, but we can't take every bone. So we just got to, let's thank God for you and let's keep pushing.
Kind of just glad we had a good crowd in the hallway at the beginning, and so some passionate people, and I wish we would have more. I mean, I guess there's 20-something thousand residents, I guess, in Marlboro County, and there may have been 20, 25, 30 in the back. I mean, we want our citizens to be engaged, for or against things. We have decisions to make, but, we want our citizens to be engaged, and, that tells you that you're passionate about something. That's what we've requested for a long time. A lot of times there's only the fateful few that sits in the corner, but they're here every time, but we thank them for coming out, and so, like I said, we'll do our best to always make the best decision for Marlboro County.
Indeed, I do thank all the citizens for attending. It is really good to see citizen involvement. But to you, Ms. Sumter, I want to thank you for your leadership thus far, keeping us informed, sending us emails. I like that. And just want to hope that, you continue to get all the training and knowledge you can, especially in government finance, so that you can get a handle on the budget and all those things such as that. I do appreciate everything that you've done thus far. I appreciate the council members, and I want to say that with the pickleball court, if there's going to be an open house or some type open house with that, please let us know. I think that would be a good idea, just a suggestion, so people would know about it and have some kind of excitement about that. Thanks again.
Ms. Sumter, Wes, Chad, good job stepping up, stepping in, as we move forward, government. There is always changes, and which is good. Change is good. And as we continue to move forward in 2026, we need to continue to think open-minded. Everything cannot remain the same. We not going, this county not going back into the farm. This county not going back into the cucumber field and bagger field. Everything is automated now. The tractors that the farmers run now, everything is automated. Most farmers used to run 30 people on the farm. Now they got about 6 or 7 people. They got a tractor now that will plant, crop, harvest, all by one man, one person, one machine. So this is the new day, new wave. People always talk about take things for what you know, not what other people say. If that were the case, we never gonna move forward. Everybody got a mind of their own and think for themselves. So don't let other people persuade or convince you. Do your own research and think it out thoroughly. Not just saying, well, I heard, I know. We don't know. A lot of things we don't know. With data center, solar farm, whatever may come this way, it take a company to come here. Just to entertain. Mr. Tony McNeil, people are knocking on Marlboro County door to come here. We talking about and you're right, ain't no plant gonna come here with no 100 jobs or 200 jobs. Them days gone. Not in Marlboro County, we not get what we want to have. Everybody talking about, well, we need this, we need that. I haven't heard a person come say, what can we have here in Marlboro County? Everybody talking about what we don't need. Well, we don't need this, we don't need that. Well, what do we need? Somebody asks that, we need y'all. Doing what? Our young kids now, no ma'am, no sir. You ain't gonna tell them to go in no plant. They don't have to. You wouldn't have to be a doctor, RN, lawyer to make a good salary. Not no more than that if you know technology. Well, ain't nobody gonna qualify for this job or that job. That would have got education for. That would have got schools for. We got people here. We got people in Marlboro County that want to go to school to be an engineer. I even talked to my grandson. Said, "Look, you in college now. Look in AI and data program at your university in Florida." So there's an opportunity for us. Not now. Yeah, 25, 26. We up in age. But those that is 17, 18 years old, 5, 6 years from now, 10 years from now, they could be making the money. And we want our children to have more than what we had. Our parents wanted, my mom and dad wanted me to be more than what they had. I want my children to have more than what I have, and so forth, so on. That's how things grow. That's how things are being built. We don't want to stay constant. Everybody wants to drive in a Pinto every day. Sometimes somebody want to get in a Cadillac and ride. And then I go back to a Pinto. Go ahead, Mr. Beasley.
I'd reiterate everything you just said, Councilman Woods. But I would like to say how informative it was to hear from Project Apollo and the community stressing their concerns. And we got many conversations to have, and a lot of people got decisions to make. And Ms. Doris Sumter, I would like to welcome you as the interim administrator, and I feel very confident in with the county being in your hands. Thank you and welcome.
Again, just as most council members stated, Ms. Sumter, thank you for stepping up and not waiting, but initiating some things. I appreciate the conversation we've had thus far, the meetings we've had thus far. Marlboro County is in good hands. Despite the optics, we are in good hands. We have some competent people who are working behind the scenes to ensure that county operations are done and done diligently. Thank you to all of our citizens. We don't count it as a nuisance that you all come and voice your concerns and the things that because we all living in Marlboro County. I doubt anybody here going anywhere. We're not going anywhere. So the decision that we're making, guess what? We're making them just as you're making them. I see myself not as a councilman. I'm an average taxpayer citizen in Marlboro County. And the decision that I'm making and the information that I'm getting is not about me. And so we want to listen to your concerns. We want to listen to the things that you have that's going to affect you and your lives. Don't stay away next meeting. Come on back. Not necessarily with your complaints, but offer some solutions. Offer some healthy ideas. So now when we go into our meeting room, we can say, hey, Ms. Baker said this right here. Maybe we want to look at that. We want to hear those things, not just your complaints. We want to hear your ideas. We want to hear your solutions to help Marlboro County become a better place for both you and I and our children to live. So again, we don't count it a nuisance that you come and voice your concerns and voice, your regrets and your complaints about things that are going on in Marlboro County. We all can see the optics. Does things need to improve in Marlboro County? Of course they need to improve. Do you need to hold us accountable? Yes, you need to hold us accountable. But guess what? We're holding you accountable too as citizens because we need your input. We need your efforts. We need your hands. We need you to be able to help us guide Marlboro County into the future that we all can be happy with. And so, again, thank you to the number of citizens who came out and those who voiced their concerns about some of the things that we're going on in Marlboro County. To Mr. McNeil, we're going to be working hand in hand to ensure that the projects that are coming to Marlboro County fit, Marlboro County and can help us not just get a dollar, but help our community expand and help our community become the community that we all know that we can. I remember Marlboro County thriving. I remember it thriving. And we can get back to but it's going to take everybody. It's not going to take Ms. Sumter doing it by herself or Mr. McNeil. It's going to take a collective effort to be able to improve Marlboro County. So again, thank you to all of our citizens, who came out. To Councilman-elect Kenny, thank you for attending the meeting. If no other sayings, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All in favor, let it be known by saying, raising your right hand. Adjourn.